everyone, welcome back to another video. I am back again with movie and TV critic and good friend Mae, and I am your girl JosieBelle Kuku, and today we are going to talk about Superstore. And we're basically just going to give like a quick recap of what's been going on the show and our thoughts on how the season has been going and where we think it's going to go and how we're feeling about the mess that this show has become. So what are your initial thoughts about the first couple? It's been about, I want to say 5 or so or 6 episodes this season.
Yeah, 5 or 6. It's so funny because like I wrote about it early on, like when it first premiered this season. Because I was still like semi-passionate about it, or it was still like my comfort show, you know, and I wrote about how that could just like when I need to sit down and just unwind, I just turn on to an episode of Superstore and watch an episode. But like the last 3 or 4 episodes, it just feels like it's going down the drain. And I'm no longer even remotely entertained to the point where I'm sort of bored. And this has never happened while watching this show because they had 4 great seasons. Season 5 was just all right. And then season 6 is just even worse. And it's really bizarre because, it's the last season and I want it to be great. I want it to go out with a bang. But it doesn't necessarily feel that way. And there's still like there's still so many storylines they can do, but it just feels like it's dragging its feet.
Yeah. For me, I think season 5 like killed it. Like I generally lost my investment in the show in season 5. I still watched it, but I definitely the passion was completely gone for me. Whereas like the first 4 seasons, like it was one of my favorite shows for a while. Like, it was that show that like I was always telling other people to check out,
Yeah.
because I was like, like it's underrated. Like people don't realize how like clever it is and it's just so well written. And it was like such a well done show in that like, yes, it was funny and in a silly way, but it was also really deep and clever and just really well written. And then season 5 happened. And it was like up until the end of season 4, like season 4 ended on a really great note. So coming back to season 5 and everything just being blah the entire season, and it never found its footing again. And it was just, unfortunate that I think I had accepted by that point that the show was never going to be what it was before. Because wasn't it that there was like a showrunner change or something?
There was, yeah. So like the showrunner and creator who ran the show for the first 4 seasons stepped down. He was still executive producer, but he's not hands-on anymore. And then they promoted 2 guys to replace him. And that's when it kind of like the tone and everything sort of just fell off.
Yeah, which is really interesting because like it's always fascinating to me what happens when a showrunner leaves the show, because I feel like there's so many examples of it doesn't always go badly,
right? It's hit or miss.
But it's interesting because with so many shows you can very much tell when a showrunner has left.
Yeah,
this is an example where unfortunately it went downhill, but it's like there was 100% a complete total shift in the tone of the show. The jokes just weren't landing anymore. They weren't funny anymore. They
weren't even having the how they had those arguments and conversations in the break rooms or on the floor, and that's what made it so like grounded, and you kind of got like a taste of what was going on in the real world. And now I just feel like it's sort of, I don't know, hitting you over the head with it. I'm not sure what's going on there, but
yeah, it was just the subtle cleverness of it was gone, and that was the aspect that made Superstore so unique. So once that element was removed, it was just your basic comedy, and at that point it was like there was nothing interesting or unique about it. So yeah, it was just like, and not only that, it was like the sense of humor wasn't hitting anymore, but it was also like they completely stopped any real character development. Like all the characters stopped acting like themselves. It was very weird. Like the shift, like so many of the storylines were either dropped or just like changed in a way that made you lose interest. Like there were so many good storylines that were going that were just completely dropped in season.
Like what happened with Mateo, that was sort of completely dropped. And then I feel like, I don't know if they cycled out some characters, the recurring characters who were kind of like in the background and stuff. And then they fell off as well. And then everything with Amy and Jonah to me also kind of just ran dry, which was very frustrating.
Yeah, because they stopped developing their story.
Yeah,
it was there,
it made no sense. It took like, I think I joked, it's like one whole season 5, and then they got like one kiss at the end, right when she announced she was moving to California. I was like, the one great moment we get with Amy and Jonah, and it's like the end of the season. I have to wait 22 episodes to get one moment between them that was like typical Amy and Jonah, and it's just, I don't know, it was just really sad.
Yeah, the whole thing made no sense, honestly. It was just like, I was like, and the thing is, like, because like you said, the people who were promoted to the showrunner were people who'd been on the show, but it's not like they were randos.
Right.
But it's like, despite having been writers on the show, it's like clearly you don't have a grasp on what really made this show great. And so I don't know, it was frustrating. But going into this season, obviously fans on top of that were renewedly frustrated by the fact that obviously we all knew that America Ferrera was leaving the show. She had announced that before the season started. But then, everyone was mad that they broke them up. So now you're starting this new season with like this breakup of these characters that we've been so invested in all these years, and that was frustrating too. And then you're like, okay, well, where's the show going to go from here? Because then they announced that the show is canceled. We know,
right? And it wasn't even like that long after America left. And I'm like, well, it just feels sort of pointless now that she left to begin with, because it's like, well, there's only so much left.
Yeah, it's not surprising because everyone was furious that they broke up, and I know that turned off a lot of viewers who were probably already hanging on by a thread at that point, and like that was like the last straw. And so it's like, I'm pretty sure their viewership probably dropped a lot by this point, and so there's really no reason to keep going with the show. But knowing that it's the final season, I was hoping that would give them incentive to wrap up the season in a good way. I knew that it was unlikely because the past season was so bad, but I was like, maybe they'll get their act together and just at least give us something positive to end on so that we can be like, oh, 5 was a forgettable season. And just like, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen either. So that's disappointing.
Yeah, and it was like the little show that could too for me, because it went under the radar for so long, and then when it started getting attention, the quality drops.
I know, and all of a sudden you're like, I've been telling people to check out this show for years, and when they finally do, it sucks.
Yeah, because I remember, was it Comic-Con 20, whatever, 19, whatever, everything before the pandemic. And the cast was at Comic-Con for the very first time since the show started. And then they were going in, they were coming off a great season 4. The ending was very emotional with what happened with Mateo. And you see all these fans kind of like come out of the woodwork, be like, oh, I so appreciate this show. It's very true to life, so on and so forth. And that was like right before season 5 happened, and they announced like the showrunner wasn't coming back. So it's like,
yeah,
so it really sucks.
So like, okay, for this season, it's been, like I said, 6 episodes at this point. All of them pretty much forgettable episodes. Obviously the episode where they break up, I guess you could say, is
I will say they did handle like the first episode really well. It was very funny in terms of like how they went through the periods of the pandemic from like the beginning through to like months later. I think it was like a show that handled the topic really well without going like overboard and being dramatic, and also just kind of keeping to the comedy of the show and making commentary. And that was like their last good episode, I think.
I mean, I thought it was just okay, but yeah, I mean, compared to some of the other episodes, I guess it was better. But yeah, I mean, the only episode I really want to like even touch on is the racism episode. You know, we already kind of talked about their breakup, so we don't need to talk about that again. But that episode was just like, I don't know, it was cringy to me, and like on the one hand I was like, okay, you know, like there were parts of it that were funny and parts of it that, you know, I appreciated the commentary on, but the entire like tone of it, which again, it showcases how much the show has fallen, because the show has talked about so many issues over the years, but it never did it in a way that felt forced or felt like shoving something down your throat, or felt like, you know, like it was always a very natural way of discussing something that showed multiple viewpoints and all that kind of stuff. But this one just felt really forced to me. Like it obviously was trying to bring up a timely issue and stuff, but like it felt, I don't know, like it didn't even seem entirely in character for that to be something that was brought up by Garrett. I mean, I don't know, it's just, I don't even know exactly what it was, but the tone of it and the way that was handled just, to me, was not that funny, and it just felt like they were trying to force an issue in a way that didn't feel natural to the show.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think in previous seasons, I would have trusted that they would have handled it much better, because these are interesting like issues regarding, you know, microaggressions and things, racism that kind of slips through the cracks. It's not just in your face racism. It's like going shopping and having like the locked cabinets and stuff like that there. So that was interesting, and I like that the topic was brought up at all. But there were times where I felt like it was kind of awkward, you know, where you're just kind of like nodding your head like, okay, where is this going?
Yeah.
And I feel like it just lacked the same sense of humor and well handling that it had in previous seasons. You know, it wasn't, not that even that it wasn't subtle, but it just didn't strike the right balance between like funny and also timely, because it's not, like you said, it's not like they haven't talked about these types of issues. They did a whole like immigration issue stuff over like several seasons, and that worked out really well, and it was handled really well. So I don't really know what went on here. Again, it's probably the showrunners and the team of writers, but primarily the showrunners, because they approve and break stories. So I don't know. It just feels so off. Like the timing and the characters, even their relationships with each other, like Jonah and Garrett don't really have that really close relationship anymore, and it's just really
it's like
to watch.
Very awkward.
Yeah,
which
it's so strange.
Is so weird. And it's like, you know, the other thing is with that episode that just occurred to me is like, first of all, like I feel like there was this sort of sincerity to it that was missing, and it was also overly preachy. But I think that that topic would have been handled much better if Amy's character was there. Because she is a good balance between all the different characters, in terms of like, she's able to like state those sort of more open-minded like opinions and stuff like that, but she never does it in a preachy way or whatever, but like it's very true to her character to kind of like, you know, she would like have an attitude about it, but she wouldn't be overly, it would just be like, oh well, this is a thing. Like it would be handled in a much more humorous way coming from Amy than it would have coming from Garrett. Especially since, like you said, Garrett, his whole personality is like, he doesn't care about anything, which is not to say that this wouldn't, like some aspects of the way that he handled it was true. Like he didn't really want to take that on, and he was just like, why is this my responsibility?
Right.
That and all that kind of stuff. That's all, and it was kind of like forced upon him, and he didn't appreciate that. I did really like the joke of when he tried to hand it to the black girl and she was like, yet again, black women have to do all the work.
I mean,
like,
she's not wrong.
But I felt like the whole show should have been those types of things.
Yeah.
Where it was like a snarky comment that made a point, but it made sense in that moment for that character to say it that way, and that was it. You know, it wasn't like, but the whole storyline and how it was handled with Garrett was just awkward and didn't feel natural at all. And I feel like one other part of it that Amy would have done better is, even though Garrett pointed out like Jonah's role, and like, you know, obviously Jonah's always the one who's trying to like be the white savior type character, if you want to say. Like, yeah. I love him. I don't, you know, like, it's part of his character. So I again, like, it's true to his character that he would have been the type to want to be like, but also trying to control himself, knowing that that's not his place. But even that was handled so awkwardly between Garrett and Jonah, in part because their relationship's already awkward, but also because Jonah, like, Garrett didn't actually check Jonah on that in the way that Amy would have. Like, Amy would have just been like rolling her eyes at him and telling him to shut up, which I was waiting for someone to just tell him to shut up. Like, the entire episode, whenever he talked, I just wanted to be like, shut up, Jonah, just shut up.
She's gone. She's gone.
Shut up. And especially like in the end, like, that would have been such a perfect moment. Like, in the end, when he's like getting the pizzas for Garrett or whatever, and he starts to get preachy again.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted Garrett to like shout back at him, shut up, Jonah, just get the pizzas and come. But the fact that nobody like put him in his place that way, it was just like, I felt like that was a missing element there of like, without Amy there, there's nobody to check him on things, you know, which is frustrating.
It really, really is. It's just so upsetting in general about this show, like, something you deeply love, and then, because I feel like I would rather be annoyed with it for a while and then have it bounce back rather than have like a slow death, just like plummeting to the bottom of the cliff, and you're like, oh, damn it.
Yeah. Okay, so last question about this. Where do you see the show going and ending this final season? Like, A, where do you think it will, and B, where would you want it to go / end?
I think it will just continue down this road of doing what it's doing now without any build up towards anything. Where I want it to actually go is for Amy to come back for the final episode and for her and Jonah to get back together. And since the show is ending anyway, and there's no reason for Jonah to stay at Cloud 9, he can actually move with her to California, and they can be back on the same page. That is like my dream ending. And for like Dina and Garrett to probably like get back, at least have like a fun relationship again, because that was really great for the while it lasted.
Yeah, which for a while they were hinting at that happening again, and it just never did. And I'm starting to feel like it's just not going to, or if it happens, it's not going to be done well. But yeah, I think everyone is just kind of hoping at this point that America Ferrera comes back for the last episode and they get back together. But I thought about this a lot, and I wanted to say, okay, that first of all, like, obviously no one knows whether she's coming back for that final episode or not. But one, I think regardless of whether she comes back or not, I don't think that prevents them from being able to have Amy and Jonah still be endgame. Like, there are plenty of ways to write the script to showcase that they will still end up together, whether or not she comes back. But the other element of it that I think if they don't do, and they probably won't because the writing hasn't been going great, but it would be a missed opportunity. Like, times like this where you're kind of, you know, they were kind of backed into a corner, right? Because they had this actress leave. But this was an opportunity for them to develop Jonah's character a lot better, because so much of with his relationship with Amy, one of the bad things about it was that it consumed his entire life. And to the point where, you know, there was that episode where Garrett points out to Jonah that his whole life revolves around Amy and the kids, and they don't even hang out anymore, and they don't have, you know, like their friendship deteriorated as a result. All that kind of stuff is not really great or healthy for a person, like to have their whole life revolve around someone else. So especially when that person up and leaves you. So
what does he have left?
I know, but I think this is an opportunity for them to correct that, because Jonah needs to get a life outside of Amy anyways. And I think one of the things that bothered me about their relationship is that he spent all his time like encouraging her to like get out of her shell and be pushing her to go higher and higher and be better and better. Like, she wouldn't have gotten that California job if it was not for Jonah. Because he was the one who was encouraging her always to keep applying, and like she did all that stuff because he pushed her to. So she's there because of him. But it's not happening on the other end. Like, Jonah has done nothing with his life since coming to that store, aside from being with Amy. And he's the type of person that like that shouldn't be enough for him. Like, he has a lot of passions and a lot of things that he cares about, all these causes that he brings up and whatever. Like, they brought up the fact that he spent a year on trying to get, you know, what's it called? Trying to get the store to have union and all that.
Mm-hmm. And then they just quit that.
Just wasted it. They threw it away as if it was nothing. And that really kind of bothered me, because even when he was with Amy, and when Amy started to kind of shut that down, that was something that actually bothered me that she did, because I was like, she knows how passionate Jonah is about this stuff. She shouldn't have shut that down, because that matters to him too. So why does she take precedence over him? But, you know, he has the ability now to focus on himself and figure out what he wants to do with his life, because I don't think working at that store was ever supposed to be a long-term thing for him. It was like a temporary stopping point to figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. So now's his chance to figure out what he wants to do with his life. And I think that they could write that in a way where they allow him to explore that and apply to other jobs. And maybe California is literally the perfect place for Jonah. It is filled with people like him. So if they just have him find a job in California at some nonprofit or something that promotes some cause he cares about, the environment, you know.
Or even get a job at a union place where he's like
on
the inside rather than kind of like in the store. He's actually working in the bigger groups to help others unionize, because I think that would be really cool.
That's a great idea. That way it wasn't a year of his life got thrown away.
Right.
Like, that was something that mattered to him. They should have a purpose, you know. So I think that's a great idea. And then that way he could have moved to California, not for Amy, for himself, and then it would just happen to give them the opportunity to reconnect. And
you know, look at that, writers. We just gave you a story.
I know. I have plenty. Reach out to me. I will tell you ways you can make this better. Stop dropping the ball, really. But yeah, I mean, for me, that would be the perfect ending, because I think Jonah's character just stopped developing at a certain point, and as him being my favorite character, that obviously bothers me. Obviously, all the characters honestly stopped developing, but you know, at least the main couple should be developed. And since one part of the couple left, you have one other one to focus on. So yeah, I hope that they at least give the audience something positive that they can end with in terms of all of the characters, but Amy and Jonah particularly, whether it's separately or together. Like, honestly, even if they just are like, oh, and they both lived happily ever after separately, whatever, like, I could live with that as long as it's written well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which that's the part we're gonna be waiting on. So
continued, we will see. We'll probably give like an update later in the season on, I think there's not going to be that many episodes this season, I'm guessing.
I don't think there are, but I don't think any shows announced how many. I mean, some shows have, but Superstore hasn't been one of the shows that's announced exactly how many episodes we're getting, so I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll update in another couple episodes, or maybe at the end, depending on how many episodes they have, and we'll see how they decided to end it. But until then, enjoy, have fun, be safe, and we'll catch you guys in another video. Like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what other shows you want us to talk about. Peace.
Bye.